So welcome everyone. We are talking in this series of events called Industry Days at Animation Film Festival Animest 2023. We have this great collaboration with Cool Production from Norway, and this event is part of that series. We have with us two guests, Zača and Ioana Nicoară. Zača comes from, Zača is correct, the pronunciation? Comes from Latvia, from Riga, and Ioana Nicoară is a Romanian animator. And we're going to talk today about the importance of professional associations in the field of animation. We think that it is an important topic, and we forget sometimes how important it is to bring professionals together and share best practices in the field of production, of animation. So I think that is a great opportunity to have a conversation today in this series, especially because it's called Industry Days. So we are going to have a discussion about best practices from Latvia, and Ioana will also share some ideas and facts about Romania or the challenges that the animation field is currently facing. So enjoy the conversation, and please take part also, and we'll have the mic running around for yes. Thank you.
So I was told that it would be useful that I would introduce a little bit to the Latvian animation industry. So in short, Latvia is one of the Baltic countries. We have suffered from the Soviet regime, and during the Soviet regime, we founded the first two Latvian animation studios, and traditionally, as in the other Baltic countries, it was a puppet studio and a classical drawn animation studio. And the only studio that still works is the puppet studio. It celebrated 55 years a few years ago, and it's called Animācijas Brigāde. First, all the animations, of course, I think it's quite similar in Romania and the other countries you represent, that it was mostly TV productions, but slowly, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, several directors emerged from this breaking in pieces 2D classical animation studio. And this is like the second generation, and one of the representatives of the second generation just presented their studio Automart. It's Edmunds Jansons. Then you probably might know also Signe Baumane, who's also a Latvian director. She's based in New York, but the films are funded in Latvia, at least co-funded. So those are Latvian productions, and Latvian animators are involved. Then, of course, this puppet animation studio is well known with children films that they make. Maybe you have seen some of them, and they travel well. Latvian animation travels well in general, and now we are in the third generation, I would say, of animation directors. And I just to prepare for this event, I was trying to count how many active directors we have, and it's about 20 people who are active in animation as directors. And then with the animation professionals, we have about 100 of people who are involved in animation in their everyday life. And of course, there's less producers. One of them was present here, just Sabine Andersson, just a few minutes ago. You could meet one of the rare Latvian animation producers. We have about 5 of them in our country. Is this going to be somewhere online? I'm sorry if I missed out on any of the producers, so I will not name them. But technically active producers, this is what I mean. So in recent years, we have got so many awards, and there are many feature films that are coming from Latvia. So it might seem that we have a huge industry, but it's actually not the case. So, and I'm part of this industry as the head of the Latvian Animation Association, which was established in 2016. Yeah, and I'm one of the founders, and like 1/3 of animation industry representatives, 8 people. We founded the association, and now it's about 30 active members in the association, and it actually covers the whole industry in a way. Yeah, if you have any other questions, I can answer.
Thank you, Anna, for making us a picture of the industry. And as I told you just before the presentation, I feel that this is going to be a conversation in contrast, because in the Romanian field of animation, I think that we struggle with the lack of a formal protection and assistance to animation artists, and even emerging but also active animation artists. And I wanted to, my first thing that popped into my mind when you were talking was, what was your needs when you started the association, and what were your goals, and how did you achieve them in this? Because I believe it was also a relationship with the structure of financing and cultural policies and so on.
So in Latvia, we have National Filmmakers Association, which has a long history, let's say. And few of animation professionals are part of this association. So, and then there is the Producers Association. And again, there were like 2 animation producers part of this huge Producers Association. So there was no legal body that would represent the animation industry. And the reason, it might sound strange, but it was MIFA animation market. And that takes place during Annecy, International Animation Festival in France. It's the biggest market in Europe for animation. And there are those country or regional representative booths or possibilities to be part of this market, and Latvia was never represented. So it was the need of producers and filmmakers who, this is a short detour. In Latvia, we have only several studios, but mostly animation directors are also the producers of their own films. So it's more like author studios. And then studios that work with several authors, as Atom Art, for example, or VFS Films, and this Animācijas Brigade, as I mentioned already. So technically, there was no legal body that would be able to apply for funding to go to MIFA to pay the rent for the booth. So that was the first goal of the association, and we managed to achieve that goal. And then we started to find other issues through conversations with all the members and people who are not yet members.
How do you struggle with the ego of the people?
It was at the first meeting when I was invited, I was, so it was how many years ago? 9? Yes, no, 7, sorry. My math is not working today. Anyways, so it was a while ago, and I was a young curator who is interested in animation, and all those big egos around me sitting in the same room with people who cannot decide how to name the association. It was 2 hours of discussion. How should we name this? Because there's a lot of meaning in it, right? There were guilds, I don't know, like lojas. It's so many artistic kind of versions of the name. And then I came up with this boring Latvian Animation Association, which everybody agreed on. So that's how I conquered the egos of our artists with this very boring version of let's do it in this bureaucratic way. So yeah, and I mean it's so interesting, and everybody really loves each other. It's like animation is a totally different world than live action or documentary. Again, is this going to be screened somewhere? I hope not, because yes, those are also beautiful medias to work in with the nice people around. It was easy because it's animation.
In Romania, I feel that apparently it's hard for animation creators to become also producers. I don't think I know anybody that really does that. And usually...
Why?
I think the formal way of applying to funding is pretty complicated. And creative people are not necessarily trained into handling papers and budgets. Am I right? And the biggest attempts of getting funding were usually from fiction film producers, and I think this was like it's always like a conflict of interest somehow, because I feel that you have to be a really passionate person about animation in order to produce animation, so that you understand the needs and how you can use the medium to really make that thing shine. And I was wondering if you have the same, or how did you deal with that, or does it exist, the situation, or the animation community is like totally separate?
The animation community is slightly separate, but there are many collaborations. There's also Edmunds Janssons, who presented just now. He was working with other studios, doing bits of animation in documentaries, or there are collaborations, right? And there are directors who move from documentary or live action to animation. Which is also somehow helping us to prove that animation needs enough money. But in our case, our funding is divided. We have culture funding, and then there's the National Film Center funding, and that's the National Film Center is the supporter of Latvian focus in Animest. Yes. So they're also the biggest funders for films. And with the culture funding, you get a bit less funding for your artist work or artist film, but still it's possible to apply as an individual without a studio. With the National Film Center, it's not possible. So technically, there is this funding that helps these authors to start. But then at some point, it's just not enough money for them, so they have to find a studio. So that's why they become also the producers of their own films in a way. But what else can I say about this? I think one thing that is specific to Latvia at this point is the fact that we have a certain lack of newcomers to animation, because those established filmmakers who are also sometimes the producers of their own films, they already know the drill, and they're well known and well received in festivals, so they are the ones who get all the money. And also, we don't have an animation school. Just recently, Edmunds has become a teacher in Latvian Academy of Arts. All of these names that you know, they have studied abroad. There is no animation school in Latvia or a possibility to learn animation, directing animation in any of the higher educational institutions. So from the very roots, they have to fight for their right to make films. They have to go some
discussion in how to produce animation, because I feel that this is a discussion that really lacks the film production industry in general in Romania, but in the animation field especially. And yeah, I feel it's very important, and how to protect the animation creatives that work with producers and in the industry.
I would like to come back to this question after maybe I can ask you a question. So
Yes,
what
please.
is the situation in Romania? How come the artists are, what is the funding situation? Do you have a school or other institutions that would be helpful to these animation artists?
I think in general, the situation of every creative field in Romania depends on the general situation of culture. So you have, it's like connected to direct big issues that every creative community addresses. Well, when you talk of an industry or of a creative community, you talk about the educational institutions, the funding institutions, and the actual industry, the people that are like independent and create like a communication between them. This is how I see things. And we do have a school now that has it's the animation department in the film school. There is also the art school that supports art students to do animation. I come from the art school. There wasn't any animation school when I started animation. And there is the funding institution is the Romanian Sense, which has a pretty rigid and hard process of getting funding. It's the process of funding is based on the classical film, fiction film kind of funding, like script, director's note, and so on. It's also anonymous, the contest right now. So you don't know whose project is it? Is it a newcomer? Is it? You don't know whose part of the process, basically. And the industry, the people that are active in animation, I think it was quite a good picture at the Romanian competition, for example, because there were quite many films, and you could see that, I don't know, 10 years ago, the situation was totally different in also as quality, also as number of films. But I could notice that there was only one film that was funded by the Sensei, if I'm right, which is weird, because the Sensei offers at least 5 or 6 fundings every year. So it's like one film that took money, I think 5 years ago or something, that was in the Romanian competition. There were a few projects that had some budget from, I don't know, other sources. And there were also quite a lot of films made by passionate people that work on their own, in their own time. So, yeah, please. Yeah.
Here we can return the question related to what Ioana said about Romanian competition of this year. In Latvia, these things happen, that there are projects that were funding and never see the light of the cinema.
Thank you for the question, Matrix.
Yes, but they are still working. There are projects that have have a delayed process of production.
I'm talking never. I mean, there are like projects for 10 years and we didn't see anything. They were just had a lot of budget for our film fund and we didn't see.
This is so sad. I'm sorry.
You summarized the situation in one word, sad. It's true. And I feel that also concerning the industry, there are people that are active in animation and that come with very different backgrounds and with very different motivations of doing animation films. There are studios that work in advertising, in VFX, post-production, that also want to do animation films. Some of them were successful in producing films, but it's like a side part of their activity. And there are very few to maybe one producer that is really producing animation films. And there are the fiction producers that want to try animation. But from my point of view, it's a weird relation in this case. So yeah, this is the, and I feel that as an animation artist, as a young animation artist, and even as a not so young animation artist, there are very little ways of accessing funding. It's very hard. I feel that it's very hard out of multiple reasons. I was also part of the jury last year for the Sensei, and I had the conversation with people that are like considered animation professionals, and it was striking to see how different the image of what animation can be and should be, can be at the same table. That can lead to conflict in the end. So it's a very divided landscape. And the word community, I think, is spoken very rarely, and people have different interests and different goals, and it's hard to put the active people at the same table. This is So this is why I think work ethics is really a discussion, because I did work with big fiction producers, and there were a lot of problems in the relationship with the production process, in the way the artists are treated. There is a gap between reality expectations and respect towards the artist's work. So yeah, it's like a blank conversation right now, I feel. I think I just started to address it now, and it's just rising.
I think it's great that you started it, and it's already a beginning. It means that it will reach some point in time. But coming back to the work ethics question, I must admit that it was not the first question on the table for several years. There was a situation when one of the directors asked the other members, like, how much do you pay to your animators? And everybody was like, we don't know. It depends on the project. Because the techniques are so different, and there is a studio that has like a permanent salary. It does not depend on the project. Then there are studios who are paying from projects, and it depends on the funding that I get. And there is a certain let's say, tradition to hide the fees. It's a funny story, but some of the very, let's say, prominent directors that are still active consider it offensive that I would ask their animators, how much do you pay them? Which to me seems very strange, right? I think maybe there's someone who can explain this thought among you, but I don't think so. So in a way, this conversation has started a few years ago, and it has led to an idea that we need animators guild like a separate association where they can figure out what they want, how they work, because gathering all that information would be the first step. And there are some occasions when animators, when they want, they're offered an agreement, they would ask to the other community members. We have a Facebook page with less than 100 animators who work in Latvia, and then they sometimes ask each other, like, how much would you ask for this? So it's like there is, this conversation is only starting. But the problem is not, it's not the animation field. The problem is our tax, let's say, politics, because they're changing every year. And it's like super complicated to follow, both for the studios and NGOs. Everybody's just waiting for the next rule and trying to figure out how they will survive this situation. So when that calms down, then there will be a possibility to start this. But the association that I am still ahead of, this association, we're trying to not to deal with this. The only things that we are doing in the fields of work ethics is listening to complaints and maybe putting together the one who complains with the one, like having a table of discussion. Like it's
mediating. I mean, can you?
Yes,
mediate?
in a way, because if I get a complaint, then I have to address it somehow. I mean, I can't leave it out just because we are not an animators guild. I'm trying to represent the whole industry, and it's not possible, right? So that's why we're forcing animators to create their own guild. And one of the ways how we want to do it, we want to implement an award during the national awards. We have National Film Awards. There's like, oh, live action this, live action that. Then there's documentary this and documentary that. And it's like 20 categories. And then there's 3 categories for animation. For us, it seems not enough. We want to start and implement a category for the best animator or animated performance. And it's complicated. There is a push against it, and all the arguments that I give, like, wait, but you have actors. Why don't you have animators? Those are the actors of animated film, and other, other arguments that I give, that there are more animators than directors. Why aren't they represented in the National Film Awards? So we hope that this would be a push to them to start to communicate more with each other. Because really, if they do not start to communicate, then we can't do anything about it, because nobody would tell us what are the problems. So it's there. I mean, there are not many people who would not be satisfied with working in animation, but there are, and there are special occasions where, I mean, they just quit and turn to other studios that are more suitable for their personality.
In Romania, for example, if you're a freelance animator, you would legally be a cultural worker, basically. So you're related to the way the Ministry of Culture created this, well, or the lack of legal protection for the cultural worker. The discussion in the cultural field is about what kind of protection, social protection, do the cultural workers have? Do they have a retirement pension? Do they have a health insurance? They have the option to pay like minimum for these things and access them, but usually you have to pay a lot of money. So most of them try not to pay and I was wondering, does the association address these problems? Is this a question?
Yes, there is a separate law. Again, I don't know if it sticks for a long time, so who knows? But there is a law now that there is, if you do not pay taxes or you're out of work for a few months, you still have to pay taxes to be socially secured. It's not a lot, but it's 170 euros is the minimum for social security, and the law somehow tried to influence the former employers, so that if a person stops working at your place, at the end you would have to still continue paying the taxes for them. Or and then there were. It's like one explanation that the culture workers got. And then there is this possibility to apply for a culture worker to creative association where he is in for extra funding, so that they wouldn't have to pay themselves from their own pocket, but this creative association would pay their social tax. But I mean, it doesn't work with animation because it has to be a huge association. So we suggested everybody to get into artists or film associations, which have this right because they're huge. So they have this possibility to free you from your taxes. So did I answer your question in a way?
Yes. Is there any way your association can change laws regarding this or help? Or do you have a plan, or is it an ongoing conversation? Because again, in Romania, it's very political. You have to have like political endorsement in order to change any kind of law regarding these things. And including the funding.
It's not, I mean, I use the word law, but it's not actually a law. It's like the rules that are being updated. And for us to change these rules or let's say something that the NGOs and culture institutions have to follow, the laws, we are part of another association. It's the Latvian Cultural Associations Association, which is a stupid name, but then again, ours is not better. I mean,
but it works.
But it works. That's it. But it's very complicated to pronounce it. So in a way, this is our umbrella association that can push changes in the law. So yes, we can, definitely. And I mean, it really is possible for an animator to state his or her concern. We would find others, let's say, who has the same issue. And then maybe, I would say, in a few years, it might end up with a change in the law. But it takes a lot of time and a lot of work. And this is something, I mean, it needs a salary. It's like a lobby, and yeah, it's a separate position.
Are there political parties that would support somehow these kind of changes, or is it would have been important?
Yes, we are in a very interesting situation right now because, well, there is a political party that everybody from the culture sphere, not everybody, of course, I'm generalizing, but most of the culture sphere is rooting for, and they're voting for them. And so there was this government change situation, and this party was not trying to take the culture minister's seat. And all the culture workers wrote a huge letter, open letter, like, hey, we are your voters, please take this. It's been too long that the nationalists have been the head of culture ministry, and they did. So there is a certain connection, but it's more about liberal ideas. It's not about personalities or a certain party. It's just that we click with them, and nobody is trying to influence our votes. It just happens that all the culture workers are voting for this party. So yeah.
Could you tell us a bit about the process of applying for funding from animation, and what are the main criteria that you get funding for?
It's one of the now that this is one of the things that we're working on. We are trying to make changes in the criteria of national film funding for development of animated film, because each studio gives another answer. When I asked them, what do you consider development stage and when the production starts? And then there is like, oh, storyboard is development and the rest is the production. And then there is animatic with sound is the development. And those are like huge steps and huge differences. So we decided to at least figure out what do we consider the development stage in animation in various techniques, right? Because it's different in puppet and 2D and 3D. So this is the first stage where we are at the moment. And we already had conversations with the National Film Center. They're ready to listen to our suggestions and maybe find the right time, because they can't open these laws or the documents at any time when they wish to do so, right? They have to wait for certain periods. It's connected to the government and the ministries and etc. So we would send them suggestions when we have good suggestions, but we're still working on it. So yeah, this is one of the funding situations that we can affect in a way. And then there is also the part of the funding so that there's the whole stash of apples, and we get a certain percentage of it, right? But it's never written. There is no quotas or something like that. But if we see that the funding is, let's say, less than 21% of the whole funding, we start to raise our red flag and and talk about it. So, but it's always a fight with the other producers, documentaries and live action.
How many film fund sessions do you have per year? And the second question is, because you mentioned development, what is the development grant for fiction, for example, so we can have like a comparison?
Yes, we have a different situation with the animation. The development is shorts and feature animated films. They go together. This is a one competition for both of the formats. So for the development this year, we had 36,000 euros, and they want to develop 3 to 2 films. For feature animation, it's about 20,000 for the development that you can get, and for a short film, the highest we have had seen was 12,000 euros for a short film development. For live action, they do not fund short films in the National Film Center, so it's always the culture funding. And in this case, they fund only fictions, so it's also about 20,000 for the development of a fiction film. And with the development of animation, you can apply as an individual for creative scholarship. And that depends on how you prepare your project. I have granted 4,000 for script and storyboard development for my film, for example. It's a short film from this culture fund, which really is, there's a huge competition there, but there is less finances. But it's more open, yeah.
And also, I was curious of the actual process. Do you apply with a script? Do you apply with a storyboard? Do you have a pitching session? I mean, how do you actually present your project?
I have been to both sides. I have been the expert and the presenter, but the process differs. The National Film Center, which is very important, they have pitches. For the development, no pitches, just a project. You apply with what you have, technically. You have to have at least treatment, a part of script, and visual additions, which is very much, let's say, directed by fiction and documentary situation. Because in animation, I believe you should be able to apply with the storyboard. Don't need the script sometimes, because not everybody has a script, to be honest.
Not all animations can have a script.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
No.
I mean, yes, we write it afterwards.
From my point of view, the script can be helpful in the production process, but less helpful in seeing.
It depends on the person who's doing
it
the.
Depends on the project,
your,
but there are a lot of films and short animation films that can really live without a script.
So technically, there are also point systems in our funding that are also not very flattering to animation sometimes. So this is also one thing we want to change, but it's very complicated because it's the law. But we are gathering as well and talking to the film center, getting a refusal, then going back, fixing our suggestions, and there are some changes that we have achieved already also in this. But what else? Can you? Did I answer
you
the question?
It. Yeah,
because I already forgot.
It's okay.
As an industry association, do you publish reports about the financing structure of animation projects? Do you have like some public statistics or things like that?
Yes, I am gathering the statistics from all the fundings because it's complicated. Again, the culture funding is culture ministry. The National Film Center is also culture ministry, but they have their own people who would gather all the information of what they have funded. Sometimes, lately they are paying attention also to the other funding and gathering that data, but mostly it's the Animation Association that connects all the dots and puts the numbers together. So the last one I did was for MIFA, Baltic presentation a few years ago. And then we are, usually when there is like a CE event or something where you have to give in information about your country, like broadcasters, producers, budget, that's where we publish the information. we don't have it on our web page because people would start to address issues and mistakes in it, because there will definitely be mistakes because the situation changes like every 3 months. And as for the grants, there's once a year for production, once a year for development. For the culture funding, 3 times a year you can apply with your films up to the, well, but it's still only development. As an individual, if you are going into production, you have to have a studio then.
Are there any more questions? Because I don't know how much time do we have.
Can you tell us a bit about how democracy works within the association? How do you have structure, like organizing the association itself?
Yes, it's a complicated task because everybody is super busy, and the democracy works in the way that I put a deadline and tell the members that if you will not answer in 2 weeks, I will make the decision myself. That's how the democracy works, But usually that helps, really, because I mean, they're like sometimes like children, because yes, we have this person who will take care of everything. She's passionate, she loves animation, she's everywhere. And then let's vote. Please give your thoughts. So that's sometimes it's a problem. During COVID, we started to lack meetings, and meeting each other is like one of the reasons why there is this association. Some of the members really don't care about anything else other than meeting other animation representatives. So it's a certain variety. It's a spectrum of all the colors of animation that we have. So in a way, it's a democracy, but then again, it depends on how they perform, right? Sometimes they really do not.
Involving in the community, right? You give me hope. I would just like to, because I think we have only a few minutes left, and maybe you could say a few words about where you can show your film in the country, if there's cinemas, like a little bit about this, because for us is a huge problem. We don't have cinemas around the country, and so on.
You have an animation festival.
Yes.
Yes, I think it's not the only one, right? So you have this platform, use it. Use it to build an association, use it to show your films, to invite your audience. I mean, the festival is your place to be.
Just like the Coma, the festival is the main place for animation, and it actually emerged animation creators during their years. I'm a child of the festival. I grew up in Animest.
It's so sweet. So thank you, Mihai, for doing it.
Yes.
But about Latvia, yes, we do not have an animation festival. I have been pushed around to start doing that as well, but it's a bit too much for one person, right? I was putting animated films and creating events for animated films from Baltics in other events that I started, like Riga International Film Festival, two Annas, other festivals that take place in Latvia. I was somehow, dealing animation with them, but I quit all of them and started to make films. So I don't know if there will be more screenings of animation. No, I'm joking. No, we will have part of the culture. We will become the culture capital of Europe in 2027. So I created a program that is called Liepāja, which is the city that will become the culture capital, Liepāja Animation Days, and there will be so much you can watch there. And yes, there is a hope that there will be an animation festivals, but cinemas we have 3 cinemas in Riga, and I mean the others are multiplexes, and I do not consider that they would be really interested in showing author films, right? Except for the features. So those 3 that do show author films, they show them only during festivals.
Are we? Haven't you? No. Maybe any other questions? Is there anybody who would like to?
About the television stations, do they like show author movies?
Yes, we. I was working on it for 4 years, to be honest. It took me 4 years to have Latvian animated short films by Latvian animation authors, not children films, the films for adult audiences. We built for programs together for slots of animation authors, and it took place last year, and now we have to wait for the films to pile up, and maybe in 4 years we will have another. It's just not enough films.
But they showed it once, I mean, the blocks.
Yes, they showed the blocks and they repeat them while they still have the rights.
No, great, that is something. I'm from Serbia, and there is a situation there that they think that like animation is for children on television, and funding situation is similar to yours. Like we have Film Center of Serbia, and we have funding applying and everything, but similar like your story. But now I'm thinking about like collecting author movies so they can be presented on national television, because I don't see why not, but maybe it will work out, I don't know.
They have, because it's like separate short units, then they have to do a lot of paperwork sometimes, that's a problem, and also put them in the program, that's a problem sometimes. But now, since they got rid of commercials in the national TV, there's no advertising in the national TV, so they freed up some space for animation. So it really was a long time. So yeah, that's. You can. We suggested. I created this event that was dedicated to invited televisions to a panel discussion in the festival, and asked them why aren't you screening Latvian films? So this is how it began, and it worked. We suggested to screen Baltic films. So maybe you can find neighbors.
Yeah, but I don't think they will come if I invite them, but maybe I can try. You think neighbors like
neighboring
culturally acceptable neighbors?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, we're trying.
They paid each film.
I'm done.
No, it's the fee that they have for they have a minute rate, and some of the films they already have bought before. Yeah, for special occasions, but only few.
I would like to maybe add something. I don't know how much you talked about the IFN network, the Animation Festival network, since we're talking about professional associations and neighboring countries and culturally acceptable countries. Maybe you, Mihai, want to say a few words, or Philip, about this network and how it impacted the animation in Romania?
Or maybe you, Matea, would like to tell us a couple of things. But actually, we are trying to, through this Animation Festival network, we are trying to promote the result of our industry, let's say. But it's very different that our goals, that the goals of association that's struggling for the funding and for. So what we do and we did, it's to go to big festivals and to try to push to have some screenings of the films from our region. That some of them they are selected in that big festival, but otherwise cannot enter. So we try to have like a separate screening. And also to do lobbies, of course, for our...
It's the job of the National Film Center. Why are you taking their work?
We know it. You know that we will do the booth. We did everything. The National Film Center that goes only to Berlin and to Cannes. And not even there, they're properly organized.
You have to make friends with them somehow, because it works in they are funding and supporting. You see, they're here. They're really like, you just have to continue. It's been 7 years, and it starts to work only recently, right? So it takes time.
We have a tough relationship.
The only argument that we have in Croatia, in front of Croatian with Audiovisual Center, which gives okay money for animation when they don't promote it well, is everybody knows that Croatian animation is the most successful film kind that we have festival-wise, you know. So they are aware of it, but it doesn't mean they know how to promote it, because maybe somehow I can understand at first, yes, they're going to Berlin and Cannes, and they do formally attend also MIFA lately and have a cocktail there, which is nice, but they don't know anything about animation. And for us, as we now heard, you know, it's a similar story in all of our countries. So it's also a similar story in Romania, Croatia, Slovenia, Slovakia, and Czech Republic, where the network members are from. So I understand it's a job of National Center, but while waiting for somebody else to do their job, we are just going to do it ourselves, because we just feel some kind of responsibility.
Can I ask, do you have NGO funding in your countries? Like a funding for non-governmental organizations, cultural organizations, because this is how we live. It's not, it's the funding that is not connected to film, it's the funding.
Yeah, that's a national funding for NGOs, yeah, but
we have, but it's pretty small. I mean, it's from some percentage of taxes.
It's small. It's like 10,000 euros per year for us, but it's still the reason why I can be the head of the association and spend my time working on it. So
it would be again a thing that we are not supposed to do, because we just want to organize our festivals. But then, okay, we feel responsible to do something for our animation
this is also
community.
like a society way that we do a lot of jobs that were supposed to be done by the state.
Yeah.
I mean, in all the aspects of our society.
it's the same in Latvia, but that's how they disseminate these tasks that the organizations should take over, right? In our case, it was the inability of the National Film Center as a governmental organization to apply for funding. That's why we created the NGO and applied for extra funding. And so maybe if you create an NGO and find a person who can dedicate her or his or their time to this organization, then some things would start to move.
We aspire to that.
We have like funding for NGOs, but in Romania it's project-based. I mean, even Animest is funded partially from NGO funding, I think.
It's the cultural fund, actually.
It's a cultural fund, but you cannot get like direct funding just because you're an NGO.
I mean, for your
it's
purpose,
only project-based.
you have to develop like cultural projects that have like a side goal.
Yes, we do. We have like results that we have to give in. Like this conversation will be part of the results that I will give in. So technically, it's probably the same. I don't know if they would accept the same results. No.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of cultural politics, because you have like some goals, like the cultural politics have some certain goals, and these kind of things are not in the goals actually. And there are only some fundings that are not constant, that are for international exposure and so on.
So maybe you have to ally with neighbors then again, and do
Yes,
some
and
kind of an
also-
international network that could help as well.
And
I
also
don't know.
push like to change the frame, the formal frame, how things go on. I mean, it's an ongoing conversation now. Well,
Thank you for starting the conversation. I hope it leads somewhere, and thank you for inviting me. It's kind of giving me back the feeling that I'm doing something worthy.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you
yeah,
very
thank you.
much. Thank you for sharing everything, and congratulations for what you achieved, and success to what you're going to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. And I want to take a moment and thank Alex, our colleague behind the scenes. So big thanks. And our host, Cervantes Institute, for hosting us. And we have tomorrow morning another coffee with the authors where everybody is invited to join. And in the meantime, enjoy the Animest program. Thank you so much.